Hi, I'm Pierce Mahan, and today I'm going to be doing a psychological analysis of Patrick Bateman from the film American Psycho. So, an overview of the film. American Psycho is a 2000 film based on the book by Bret Easton Ellis, American Psycho. The film takes place in New York City in 1987, revolving mostly around a young, wealthy yuppie named Patrick Bateman that works on Wall Street at the banking firm Pierce & Pierce. The movie is mainly a critique on the rich and privileged yuppie class of Americans that enjoy luxury life in New York City in the 1980s, while many less fortunate people suffered greatly to make ends meet. Everyone has a goal to be more successful, more rich, and more impressive than one another throughout the film, with almost every character being extremely self-absorbed and egotistical. Although none of the socialites that Patrick spends his time with are very interesting or decent people in any sense, Patrick is different than them in one way. He is a murdering psychopath. Throughout the movie, Patrick goes on many murderous rampages, killing many people randomly, and even confesses to these vile acts in the end of the film. Yet no one ever cares, not his friends, nor the police. Patrick's diagnosis. It's quite obvious from the start of the movie that something isn't right with Patrick mentally, and evidence of this is shown throughout the film. As the movie's title suggests, Patrick is a serial-killing psychopath suffering from antisocial personality disorder. While a psychopath is generally just someone with abnormal and very violent social behavior, antisocial personality disorder is a mental illness characterized by a lack of empathy as well as antisocial, impulsive, aggressive, and even criminal behavior. The culture that Patrick lives in is not one that would pay attention to his mental illness, as most of his peers are as self-centered and apathetic to others just as Patrick is. The 1980s high society culture that Patrick lives in is about being the best, and specifically being better than anyone else. Because of this need to be perfect, no one discusses mental illness in the film, as this would be seen as weakness. In American culture, until recently, talking about mental illness has been very taboo, and people with mental disorders are generally looked down upon by others. If Patrick was to go to a therapist, which is very unlikely, there is a good chance they would not be able to figure out he is a psychopath, as Patrick is very deceptive and is skilled at faking his behavior and emotions. But a therapist would most likely diagnose him with antisocial personality disorder or borderline personality disorder, based off his more prominent traits like arrogance and a lack of empathy. So some evidence of Patrick's disorder. Patrick Bateman shows many different symptoms of antisocial personality disorder within the film, with the main two being extreme aggression and a lack of empathy for others. Until about 20 minutes through the movie, Patrick seems to be nothing more than a hateful, mean, and selfish pseudo-intellectual. The film takes a turn when Patrick begins to show more of his psychopathic qualities by murdering people indiscriminately. A good example supporting Patrick's antisocial personality disorder symptoms is the murder of Paul Allen. In the beginning of the movie, Patrick runs into a coworker named Paul Allen, who continuously disrespects Patrick, like continuously calling him by the wrong name, for example. Patrick begins to despise Paul more and more, most likely because he is jealous of him. This is because Paul is able to get the most expensive dinner reservations and has the most professional business cards, and just acts like he is better than Patrick. Patrick decides to take Paul to dinner, but is really just planning to lure him back to his house to murder him, without a single bit of empathy for his coworker. At dinner, both Paul and Patrick are very demeaning and insulting to their waiter, with Patrick even threatening the waiter with bodily harm, another example of his overly aggressive behavior. After getting Paul sufficiently drunk, Patrick takes him back to his house, where he talks about random music trivia before smashing Paul's head in with an axe. Patrick then tries his best to cover the murder up and hide the body, and in the end, even gets away with the murder. This extremely aggressive and apathetic behavior is a clear sign of Patrick's disorder. So this brings me to Patrick's treatment. Patrick is very unlikely to go and seek out treatment for his disorder, although more towards the end of the movie he becomes more aware that something is very wrong with him. Patrick's constant fixation on how people view him, like his girlfriend, his coworkers, and his social circle, would likely prevent him from openly seeking any form of help. My treatment plan for Patrick's disorder would call for him to be forcefully institutionalized and be given daily psychotherapy as treatment. Currently, psychotherapy is the only real way to treat antisocial personality disorder. Some may have ethical concerns over this treatment, or really any treatment for mental illnesses that calls for the patient to be institutionalized. Since Patrick is such an erratic and very dangerous person, for everyone's safety, especially those treating him, he needs to be institutionalized. This brings me to our last section of the PowerPoint, broader perspectives on the film. While this film gets many traits of psychopathy and antisocial personality disorder correct with Patrick Bateman, his character is an immensely exaggerated portrayal of a psychopath. Patrick's lack of empathy and emotions are accurate to someone with antisocial personality disorder, but not everyone with this disorder is necessarily a psychopath, let alone a serial killer that murders people indiscriminately. Patrick continues to lose his sanity more and more throughout the film, while most people with his disorder aren't even aware of it or ever will be. Most average people probably don't study many mental disorders, and instead film, books, and other forms of media tend to influence their view of many different mental illnesses. Comparing this film's portrayal of antisocial personality disorder with what it really is shows that some films may tend to romanticize certain disorders or at least exaggerate them to make them more interesting to a film audience. This is the case in American Psycho. Because of this, many films most likely spread false information about mental disorders. Overall, with the amount of symptoms this movie gets correctly, American Psycho is a mostly accurate portrayal of this disorder. And that completes the presentation. Thanks for watching.